When the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service placed the African lion on the U.S. endangered species list, they used 5 factors from their rulebook to guide them. Range and habitat, overutilization, disease and effective laws may appear perfectly reasonable concerns, but the story is much more complex. Other crucial factors not in their rulebook were overlooked, including custodians and economics. The custodians of Africa's wilderness hunting areas, the safari operators, were not acknowledged for their conservation and community efforts.
Funding for our anti-poaching is always hard. It's one that doesn't give you a direct return immediately in your pocket, but by seeing the game populations that we have here now is one way of gauging how effective it is. In the years we've been here, we've gone from 1,200 buffalo to 22,000, 44 sable up to 3,000 in this block alone. Any given day, you're going to see 2,000 warthogs and 2,000 or 3,000 reedbuck. And that's purely because of anti-poaching. There isn't any other reason whatsoever. If we remove the anti-poaching unit from here and we took hunting out of this block, I would say within 1 year we'll halve the game population, and within 3 years we'll go back to where we were.
This is our utah has been caught by a gin trap. See how it's broken its leg here and all these pieces of skin. So last year I did a count of 104 gin traps, 1,227 snares and 127 poachers.
The economics of protecting wilderness areas in Africa is the single most important issue. If safari operators, either hunting or photographic, can't turn a profit, they either go out of business or scale down their community and anti-poaching operations to a point where they become ineffective. Dangerous game species, buffalo, lion, elephant, rhino and leopard, generate the most income. There is relatively little money in hunting the plains game species. If safari operators are forced out through financial constraints, the cow and the plough move in very quickly.
In Tanzania, we have a tribe called the Wasukuma who are cattle herders. They've moved into an area adjacent to us. Since the hunting operator left his block, the area has been overrun, and when they come in, they also farm. As they move along, they'll spend maybe a year in an area while grazing that area, and they'll cut huge tracts of land for farming and also cut down trees, which encourages grass to grow for better grazing. Once the tribe takes hold and as they move into these areas, the wildlife move out and the hunters move out, and the area becomes not viable for anything other than cattle grazing. And so we've lost a great area next to us because of this.
Now that the African lion is on the United States endangered species list, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service can play God. The service now demands proof that lion hunting enhances the species before trophy import permits will be issued. Conservation Force has just released an operator enhancement report involving 27 hunting operators in Tanzania that manage 74 hunting concessions in 49 game reserves, 14 game-controlled areas, 10 open areas, and 1 wildlife management area. The sample operators steward 120,000 square kilometers of the 304,000 square kilometers set aside for hunting concessions in Tanzania. The report details the operators' contribution to anti-poaching, community support, habitat protection, job creation, lion monitoring, and the recovery of species in addition to lion. The report underscores the critical role that U.S. hunters play in sustaining the enhancement of more than 50% of Africa's wild lion population. The report reveals the following samples of contributions in the 2013 to 2015 period. This was before the lion was listed on the U.S. endangered species list. Over $6.7 million in anti-poaching and road opening expenditures. Over $3.1 million in community investment and participation. The arrest of at least 1,400 poachers and the collection of over 6,000 snares and gin traps. Over $250,000 in healthcare improvements, including construction of numerous clinics, installation of solar lighting and heating for a village maternity ward, treatment of 1,600 eye ailments, and donations of hundreds of wheelchairs. Over $337,000 contributed to education projects, including over $60,000 for school fees, over $50,000 for school libraries and laboratories, and construction of 24 classrooms. Over 1,200 jobs created and another 250 seasonal jobs. extensive contributions of harvested game meat to disincentivize poaching and provide a sustainable protein source for rural communities. The report also describes extensive habitat protection efforts, including the drilling of boreholes and building of dams, operations against cattle encroachment, and patrols against timber poaching. Hunting areas in Tanzania are 5 times larger than the country's national parks, and most lion live outside the parks in those areas. Lion generates the highest revenue per hunt of any species in Africa, except for the rhino, and most of the hunters are US citizens. The operators have lost most of their lion hunting clients. This is irreplaceable income, especially given the suspension of elephant trophy imports from Tanzania by the US Fish and Wildlife Service. 44 hunting concessions have been returned to the Tanzanian Wildlife Department in 2016, representing about 60,700 square kilometers of wilderness. This is the equivalent of 3 Kruger National Parks. If lion trophy import permits are not issued soon, more wilderness areas will be lost forever. What is generally not understood is how quickly a wilderness area can disappear once a safari operator is forced to leave. It doesn't take long to clear an area of wildlife. The predators such as lion and leopard are the first to go. An area can be totally trashed within a year. Once a wilderness area has been turned into farmland and cattle pastures, not only is all of the wildlife wiped out, but moving the people out once they have become settled is virtually impossible. It becomes political at the grassroots level. It is highly unlikely that any local politician looking for votes is going to tell those people who have moved into former wilderness areas to move out and make way for wildlife. The future of vast swathes of African wilderness, not just in Tanzania, looks bleak. It is highly unlikely that the US Fish and Wildlife Service will act very quickly to undo the damage already inflicted, if their past record is anything to go by. It took 13 years of litigation before finally, in 2012, the US Fish and Wildlife Service downlisted the Suleiman markhor of Pakistan from endangered to threatened, allowing US hunters to import their trophies. Africa's wilderness areas can't afford to wait 13 years.
You're going to kill all the 28 game reserves in this country for sure, and all the wildlife that are coming out of the protected areas and to the open areas, for example, will be gone.
If at all the tourist hunting is going to be stopped in this country, I'm telling you, there will be no future of wildlife in this country. Take it from me.